President Cyril Ramaphosa has accused the independent panel that looked into the Phala Phala farm robbery of misconceiving its mandate and misjudging the evidence it received. The three-member team found that the president may have a case to answer over his role in the theft that took place at his Limpopo farm. That was in 2020. The president has now approached the Constitutional Court directly to have that report set aside. So let's get you some analysis now. We're joined by the chairperson of the Southern African Institute for Responsive and Accountable Governance, Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane, joins us via our video link this morning. Tseliso, thanks very much indeed for coming on. Great to have you here. I suppose one of the big questions which I've just alluded to is, does this case qualify for what the president is asking for here, direct access to the Apex Court? Tseliso, I think you have your... There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Good morning to you, Michelle, and to viewers. Yes, the Constitution is very clear that any conduct or law which is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution should be set aside. So I guess the president in this case is not really happy with the report of the panel, and therefore is entitled to approach the Constitutional Court to make a decision on this, and therefore it will depend really on what the Constitutional Court will say on this matter. Because he's raised a number of concerns about the report, because the charges against him are quite serious. It's an impeachment process, and therefore the president can only be removed if he's found guilty of serious misconduct and serious violations of the Constitution. And therefore he's arguing that, what the report says is not sufficient to form a basis for an impeachment process to start. And therefore the courts then will decide whether actually the panel abided by the principles of the Constitution or not.
Yeah. The president citing in his court papers that I have here in front of me that the panel exceeded its mandate. He says he thought he was responding to the 4 issues that were set out by the ATM when it filed that motion of no confidence against him in Parliament, which then led to the formation of the Section 89 panel. But the panel itself then went way beyond the scope of those 4 questions.
Yes, that his argument is also disputing the fact that, he did not comply with the Constitution in terms of reporting, in terms of the Corruption Act. Also that the panel relied on evidence which is basically hearsay. And also, many things which the panel actually finds him to have done wrongly are not there. Yeah. There isn't enough evidence to back it. So that's why he's saying, therefore, the conclusions of the panel are baseless, they're unreasonable, are irrational, and therefore they cannot be used as a basis. And therefore we hope the court then will make a ruling on this. But it's also very important to remind ourselves that, the impeachment process actually has been shrouded with controversies. We can also look what's happening with the public protector's Mukabane's case. There are lots of court cases around this matter. So there's need really for clarity and certainty in the law and the conduct around impeachment of high-ranking officials in our country.
The Speaker of Parliament, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, saying that the proceedings in Parliament will go ahead up until such time that the court has anything to say. Essentially, she's saying, even though the president has approached the Constitutional Court on an urgent basis, whatever needs to happen in Parliament insofar as the debates and adoption of that report, it will go ahead. I mean, do you think that that's plausible?
Well, look, it does raise the issue of separation of powers. For the past 28 years, we've had debates from all sides that, sometimes the courts overreach themselves. The courts have also found Parliament itself for not acting within the boundaries of the Constitution, the same with the presidency. So I guess these issues have to be clarified. I mean, at the end of the day, Parliament is the only one which can remove the president after he's been found guilty of misconduct. But on the other side, the Constitution also has a right. That's why the president has gone to the Constitutional Court, because the Constitutional Court is the only one also in terms of the law which can actually find the president guilty of violating his constitutional powers. So we do need to clarify these issues of the separation of powers, and therefore this decision will help. But also, in fairness to the Speaker, she says, once the court has made a ruling, a direct order, then of course they have to abide by that decision. Yeah. So up until the court says nothing could happen, then we cannot do anything until then.
Yeah, the president also saying in his court papers that only this court, referring to the Apex Court, can decide whether or not I have failed to fulfill the obligation imposed by me in Section 83 of the Constitutional Court. Tseliso, I want to go back to the issue of hearsay, which the President is arguing against the findings of that panel looking into Phala Phala. The panel itself, in its findings, admitted as much, right? It says it's still waiting for material evidence from the likes of Arthur Fraser.
Yes, I mean, as you are aware, there are also other bodies which are looking into this matter: the public protector, the police themselves, and I think to some extent the Reserve Bank and the SARS. So it's actually quite interesting that we have all this. So you can imagine if tomorrow the public protector makes a finding, which, as far as we know, until the law is changed, the decisions are binding. So what will this mean then? So I think we really need to be careful as a country going forward how we deal with these matters in view of the different bodies which play a role in this matter. So as I was saying, I mean, if tomorrow the public protector says the president is actually guilty of all these things, then what happens?
Yeah.
However, ultimately, even if the Constitutional Court was to make a finding that the president is guilty of violating his constitution, it's only Parliament which can remove him in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the Section 89, as well as the vote of no confidence provisions.
Let's not forget, we are about, 7, 8, 9, 10 days away from the elective conference.
Yes, that's also another challenge, as to what is the position. But as we've heard yesterday, the ANC has taken a decision that they will oppose the report. They will oppose any motion because they support the president's position on this matter that, the report of the panel is not sufficient to form a basis for an impeachment process. And let the courts then clarify this matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me thank you for your time. Advocate Tseliso Thipanyane is the chairperson of the Southern African Institute for, ironically, Responsive and Accountable Governance. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.